Hello everyone and welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms video. I am RoyalMixGaming, and in today's video we're going to talk about the top 3 cavalry pairs in 2022 and what are going to be like those best cav pairs, and also just kind of this is the 2022 version updated from the previous videos I've done just to get you guys up to date on what the best cavalry pairs are, because we went through and had the new calves come out very recently as Joan of Arc Prime and then Jan Zixa, which I'm probably saying it wrong still, but we have some new cav commanders, so we're going to go ahead and go through what I think the top 3 are. So I would say my number 1 pick overall, simply because it's going to do a lot of damage, give you some buffs, and it's also going to be very versatile and can be, I would say, mix matched with other commanders if you don't have this pair specifically, is going to be Nevsky with Joan. I think that is probably the number 1 cav pair right now, simply because Joan is going to provide you a possibility to double cast your second skill, ramp up Nevsky's basically his chance of firing his primary skill right after the second time Joan fires hers, and it's going to be a fairly decent skill cycle that's going to work really well together. I think that Nevsky primary is probably better simply because you're going to get the debuff first, then hit with Joan, get the buff from her, give it to all your other commanders, possibly fire her skill a second time, and then probably have the next skill ramped up for Nevsky to fire it again within a fairly fast window. Not as fast as XY, but it's definitely going to be on par with that kind of skill cycle because you're firing her skill twice, and it's kind of a similar situation where you're doing a lot of skill damage to the current target and also a little bit of AoE because her primary is a 2000 damage factor to 3 targets, and then you're giving yourself a rage buff and your other commanders a damage buff, which is why you could make the argument why she could be primary, simply because you're getting the damage boost, the 5% all damage. But I also think that putting her first is going to put more of a target on her than Nevsky first, simply because she's new, Nevsky's not. You're going to see a lot more Nevsky primaries than you see Joan primaries, which is why right now I think Joan secondary is probably the better option, and that's why this is my number 1 pick, because it's just, as I kind of stated before, doing a lot of damage, giving you some buffs, and I think it's just a better AoE than William and a better buff than what William is providing for you. And you can do her 5-5-1-5 if you're lucky enough to do that. I was not lucky enough to get that, but I will keep trying to get that because you want this at 100% for Joan Prime, and then her second skill is her attack, a bunch of march speed, a little bit of normal attack, and then her primary skill obviously is probably her best skill, other than firing her active skill again. The third skill is just some cav damage, which I think is like normal attack and counter attack. It doesn't really say that. It's not all damage. So that is why this is my number 1 pick right now, because she just helps Nevsky do a lot more damage. Obviously, Nevsky, you want expertise if you can. He's a very good commander. You want to go ahead and expertise him. I think the secondary, or the second pair that I think is the next top tier right after that, and is basically very close or even on par with this pair, is Nevsky with William. And the only reason I think that Joan is better is because you're firing her active skill twice every, I think it's like 10 seconds, you have the chance to fire her active skill, 100% chance, if you do her 5-5-1-5. William here, you can really do him 5-1-1-1 and get away with it, but obviously you want to make him like 5-5-5-1 because you're getting some extra attack, some march speed, all damage, and then you're also getting some more attack, direct damage factor, and some extra surrounding target damage, which is really, really nice. Obviously, you don't have to do that, which is why this is kind of my second pair, because it's an option that is extremely cheap for most people, even cheaper than Joan. Another reason Joan's first is because she's kind of mid-grade between really expensive, where you have to max. The next pair I'm going to have to talk about, you have to have them both max, but this pair is kind of that extremely cheap because you just have to have Nevsky if you can, expertise if you don't, still really good. 5-5-5-1 Nevsky's obviously really, really good. Max him out, do a William 5-1-1-1, and you've got a very, very solid combo. That is my second pair, because William has a slightly different AoE that's a little bit harder to do, but he's going to remove this extra skill damage bonuses and some things like that. In my guide for William, you can kind of look at that also, but he's going to have a buff as well with, I think it's rage and some stuff like that, and defense bonuses and some other things that he gets from his skills, which is why this is my second top pick for the cavalry pairs, because he's just extremely cheap, very easy to do, even easier than Jonah Prime right now. My third best cavalry pair in the game right now, I think, is going to be XY with, again, Nevsky, because Nevsky's just OP. He's very good. He's best cavalry commander himself in the game. Goes very well with basically any cavalry commander, other than the couple that I wouldn't mention because they're not going to go well with him, obviously, because they don't do the same kind of things he does. But XY and Nev, a very well-known pair, does a very good job of doing a lot of skill damage in a very fast cycle, because as most of us know, XY has a reduced rage requirement, and his other skills here, his fifth skill, I think, reduces his rage, gives him, like, I think it's like a, I don't know if it's like 650 or 850, I think it is, something like that, rage requirement, so it's a little bit less than the normal rage requirement, which makes him ramp up much faster, and over time, when he's doing a rally, he does more damage and things like that, but really it's just that he's able to fire his active skill quickly and get Nevsky's skill to fire off very, very quickly as well. This pair, I think, is the squishiest out of all three of these pairs, simply because he's not really going to have much defense. None of these pairs really have a lot of defense, but I think this has even less, because most people are like, oh, it's XY, he's squishy, he's going to fire his skills very fast. They're going to target this over a Nevsky first, primary, than this as an XY. So XY is going to get targeted more than likely first over other pairs, which is why it's the third pair, because he's just a very high priority target, because he just fires his active skills so quickly and gets other commanders as his secondary to fire their skills very, very quickly. So those are kind of my top three picks right now for the top cavalry pairs. Obviously, you can mix and match. Some of these commanders do XY and Joan, Nevsky with somebody else. If you want to do with him with, I don't know, Saladin or something, you can do some other pairs. Attila, you can do some other pairs if you want to. Those pairs just aren't going to do as much damage, provide you the buffs. So those are my top three pairs for 2022, updated at the end of this year for cavalry, and I hope you guys learn more about them. Use some of those pairs yourself. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already to the channel. We're going to be doing more live streams like we have been recently when I can. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.